This video is sponsored by you, links for the channel are in the description. Hello there, Arknights' most hated YouTuber here, once again being made aware of the fact that Jinjings and Tuna know about me apparently. That's the happiest I've ever been, even more than I was at my own marriage. In any case, here is the intro for those of you that are new players coming back from a 40-year hibernation, or watch this video but don't play Arknights for some reason. You're out there, I see you. Integrated Strategies is the roguelike mode of Arknights. While nowadays it may seem that every new gacha, from the Hoyoverse Heavy Eaters all the way down to another Eidos Dragon Minar, must have a roguelike side mode, Integrated Strategies was the first, or at the very least, the first to make a splash big enough for other games to follow suit. While every IS mode is fundamentally a different game, they all share common traits. You navigate a map composed of nodes. These modes can be combat but harder, encounter, recreation, or IS-specific nodes with various effects. You recruit operators at E1 through random vouchers by spending hope, and you can recruit them again with a little more hope for E2. Every mode has a shop and a selection of squads to start the run with. As you progress, you get random items with random buffs, just like you would in any other roguelike. Now that IS6 is on the horizon, it feels fitting to look back on IS so far, and rank them all in a comprehensive list, from worst to best. Of course, this is all my own opinion, take everything in this video with a huge grain of salt, as it is filtered through the worldview of an extremely charming Italian man. If there is anything making this list made me realize, it's that every IS mode has very clear positives and very clear negatives. None of these modes are even close to perfect. Each one caters to a different type of player. IS4 is for the tryhards, IS2 is for the newcomers, IS5 is for those who prefer a more sandbox manipulable experience, and IS3 is for those among us with no standards. Out of every ranking video I've made on this channel, this one is the most subjective. As I said, each IS appeals to a different kind of player. Also, this list is from the point of view of max difficulty. Most of what I say applies to all difficulties, but keep that in mind. But before getting into the list, have you ever wanted to buy packs without spending too much money? Well, golly, have I found something for you. Loot Bar is the most affordable marketplace to purchase packs in gacha games, with coupons for new users to get things at even less. All combined, Arknights is 24% off right now. We range from Genshin to WoW to Star Rail to, of course, Arknights. Delivery is fast. In fact, for Arknights, they have a little baked-in emulator, where you log in and buy the packs directly. After the top-up is finished, all login records are completely erased to ensure a secure environment. It is safe with a 7-day refund guarantee and has tons and tons of good reviews. Use the links in the description and pinned comment to get some packs for yourself. I really can't recommend this website enough. 2 years ago now, I made this video. Back then, I praised the simulated universe from Honkai Star Rail as a good example of roguelike in gacha, while at the same time putting IS3 on blast for being absolutely miserable. Things have changed since then. For one, Star Rail became a game addicted to shooting itself in the foot. Playing Star Rail in 2025 is much like a humiliation ritual of sorts. And yeah, my feelings about IS3 have changed as well. I actually hate it even more now. Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate IS3 since I began to live. IS3 is not just the worst IS mode by a margin as wide as the average League of Legends player, it is also the undisputed worst mode in Arknights, period. The only thing that ever came close to challenging IS3's throne of garbage is Reclamation Algorithm 1, a mode built around doing countless deliberately doomed runs so you could unlock permanent buffs, and then once you did, the whole thing became mind-numbingly boring. That was a mode that withheld information on purpose to make you fail over and over, and somehow, some way, IS3 still manages to be worse. Let's start with the root of everything wrong with IS3, RNG. RNG is a fundamental pillar of the roguelike experience. You can't have a roguelike if you don't have RNG. Its purpose is twofold. It both gives the player a feeling of scrapping by with whatever they get a hold of, a sense of improvisation and maybe even ingenuity, and it gives the game variety, as no two runs are ever the exact same. You want enough RNG to create surprise, but you don't want so much RNG that you're basically sitting down at a slot machine hoping the game feels like letting you play today. IS3 chooses the latter. The RNG is out of fucking control. My argument is simple. You do not play IS3, rather IS3 happens at you. The mode exists in a perpetual pendulum-like state, swinging between mind-numbingly boring and I'm going to put a shotgun barrel in my mouth. IS3 has a personal vendetta against the concept of player agency. Shop refreshes, RNG. Floor transitions, got RNG. Pathing, sometimes RNG. Vertical travel, access to it is RNG. Relic nodes, RNG. Squads, RNG. Stage rewards, RNG sometimes. Everything in this mode is RNG to a level that makes the fucking gacha banners blush. Now, I want to preface this entire psychotic breakdown disguised as a YouTube review with something. What about difficulty 16? For those of you unaware, difficulty 16 onwards makes you start every run with the Fosterer genotype relic. Any operator afflicted with a rejection, which are the random debuffs you can get at the start of every floor, can now be placed down and assimilate to operators in a 3x3 around them. This will pass the rejection onto those two operators, remove it from the chosen operator for the stage, and give them quite a hefty buff. I am not gonna lie, IS3 above difficulty 16 is a genuinely good mode, and the only IS that actually gets better at higher difficulty instead of worse. I tried it for the first time for the sake of being thorough for this video, and I was literally that fucking Tony Stark meme. Why is the gameplay good? Not only does the Fosterer genotype give you a real way to work around and combat the main piece of bullshit RNG in this mode, it is also a very fun and interactive way to do so. You have to choose what operators to sacrifice, if it is even worth to sacrifice someone. You can pick up dummy operators like the reserve ops for it. You have to keep in mind this sacrifices 2 squad slots. You have to think about positioning, and much more. Not just that, the buff also fixes the issue of IS3 always funneling you into the same type of run, as I will discuss later. Casters become genuinely viable again, though you need them to get randomly hit with a rejection. IS3's main problem, as I said, is the lack of player agency, and the Fosterer genotype is a full injection of it. Now, does it fix the mode as a whole? No, not at all. The fact you unlock this at difficulty 16 is absurd. You are asked to trudge through 15 difficulty tiers of absolutely maddening gameplay so you can finally get to something good. Even then, the Foster genotype can only do so much. Vertical travel is still a mess, the hope economy is still a mess, the stages are still boring, the shop reroll RNG and relic node RNG is still there, and so on. Still, if we are to take IS3 at difficulty 16 to 18 in a vacuum, just as a little slice, it does rank above IS2 and IS4 easily. Unfortunately, difficulties 1 to 15 exist. So, keep in mind, everything from this point forward is exclusively talking about IS3 from difficulty 1 to difficulty 15. IS3 difficulty 16 to 18 will appear later in its own separate segment. The issues begin frame 1. It wastes no time going full goatsy and presenting its ass to you. The squad selection screen is underwhelming. Unlike other IS modes, your playstyle barely changes depending on your squad, because IS3 gives you almost no agency during the run itself. The only squads that actually do something are Mind Over Matter, because it gives you a unique relic on start, and Resourceful, which just reduces the bullshit RNG slightly. What I want to focus on are the class squads. I will admit, in IS2 they were maybe a little too strong. Automatically E2ing any operator you recruit from 2 classes for the entire run is a bit insane. IS3, in its quest to be absolutely miserable, overcorrects in the opposite direction. Now, operators from those classes cost 2 less hope, 1 less hope to promote, and promote at random. Usually, if you pick a class squad, the entire point is starting with a certain unit at E2, but the chances the random promotion hits the one you actually want is basically 0. This is because the system doesn't exclude E0 and E1 operators, who cannot be E2'd. So often, the random promotions fall on operators that literally cannot be E2. In effect, at high difficulty, all this does is allow you to start with a 6-star without the floor 3 starting bonus, which is good, but ultimately underwhelming, because starting with 5 stars is not that bad, and you can pick up the 6-star you want along the way. At the start, the difference really is having the 6-star at E2, not just having the 6-star. And because that random promotion lasts the whole run, you'd think it matters, but not really. First, you need the vouchers, then you need it to land on someone worth using, and even if it does, by that point you already have a strategy going, so you probably won't pick them anyway, or in the most hilarious circumstance, you just don't have the hope to get them. This design encourages restarting the run until the random promotion finally gives you something acceptable. It's an actual case of players optimizing the fun out of the game. Not that there's much fun to be found in IS3, but still. And even then, the class squads are completely outclassed by people-oriented. Going back to that, oh, but you get to start with the 6-star, just pick people-oriented then. 1 less hope for everyone, more safe house choices, and an extra max command level. The random promotion gimmick is the only thing class squads offer that is unique to them, and most of the time it's not gonna be helpful. Now that we've made it past the literal first screen of the mode, we can start explaining the issues with the second screen. The issue is threefold here: the hope economy, the difficulty tiers, and the RNG again. The hope economy is needlessly punishing. There is a reason IS5 and IS6 made 4 stars free. Beforehand, IS was dominated by 6-star carries. Most squads consisted of 3 stars and then straight up 6 stars, which defeated the point of the mode of trying out different operators. IS3 takes the old system and makes it even worse. 4 stars now cost 3 hope and are entirely unviable, and 3 stars at 1 hope just feel awful to pick up. Once again, IS3 is dominated by 6-star carries, save for some niche options at lower rarities. Then, the difficulty tiers. This is the first IS mode to implement them, and it shows. The more you stack, the more the game funnels you into specific teams. Melee units get overly punished because of brood modders. Arts damage gets dumpstered by insane resistance stats, and as a result, snipers and specialists become the only reliable carries. Guards and casters struggle harder than Carnelian in any chapter past 3, vanguards are reduced to just making DP, defenders are reduced to just blocking, and medics become mandatory. With this much RNG that grabs you by the balls and squeezes, you'd think at the very fucking least, the runs would end up being very varied. If the mode is effectively a slot machine, the results are bound to be different each time. And yet, somehow, IS3 managed to make it so, despite that, you are always generally funneled into the same type of run. You are both at the mercy of RNG and also pushed to do the same strategy in every run. It's honestly impressive how thoroughly IS3 aims to remove your player agency. So, now that you started your run with Exialter or Wishadel, I can start whining about the actual gameplay. These stages are boring as hell. Some stages have nothing happening, like Ebb. Others are just the same stage recycled twice with different enemies, and most of them can be solved by pointing your operators at the enemy. There are exceptions, obviously, but IS3's stages rarely go beyond you win the stage by killing the enemies. There's no real deeper strategy. You can play most of it with your brain halfway turned off, right up to the final boss. It doesn't help then that the relic pool here is just meh. There is no standout relic you are really hoping for or chasing after in IS3. IS2 has hands and black books. IS4 has hands and black books again. IS5 has a fucking buffet of broken as fuck relics worth chasing. And IS3 has nothing really. They even removed the golden chalice. Why? Why would you do that? Given IS3 still has the hands, still has the black books, but since the stages demand nothing from you, there is no joy in finding those relics because you could have gotten by without. And then there's the rejection debuffs. Every floor and sometimes random events slap you with a random debuff on a random operator. Sometimes. These range from does basically nothing to get fucked, your run is dead, start over. Concentration disorder is entirely harmless. Neurodegeneration disables fast redeploys, but at least it doesn't outright disable anyone it lands on. Hemopoietic inhibition can be annoying at times, and metastatic aberration straight up disables any operator that gets hit with it. Genuinely, any operator that gets this becomes entirely worthless. Some runs you get lucky, and you get concentration disorder on units that have auto skills anyway, or neurodegeneration on Winner. Other runs you get metastatic aberration on your carry, and the run just ends there. A lot of people misunderstand my point here. The point isn't that it is unfair or that it is difficult. The point is there's nothing you can do about it. You have one die roll, but it's not enough. IS3, top to bottom, is filled with stupid shit like this. The shop refreshes are tied to dice rolls. Keys are entirely random as well, meaning access to vertical travel is random, and access to some paths is also random. Relic nodes also have RNG, where either nothing happens, you get a bonus relic, or your relic gets swapped out for something else. The point isn't the presence of a negative outcome. The roll would make no sense if there were no stakes. The point is, again, the lack of player agency. What does this RNG add to the mode, truly? What do random key drops add? What do the dice rolls in the shop add? What about the relic nodes? It is RNG for the sake of RNG. It doesn't make the mode better. It doesn't add anything to the experience. IS3 has a lot more of these little nuggets of infuriating randomness, like ending 2, for example. You need to protect last night starting from floor 1 or 2, but if you get the Gopnik enemy too early, before you have the DPS to kill him, last night is just gonna die and the run ends there. If there is anything at all I can say about IS3 that is positive, is that at least you can buy the Battle Pass levels with Originite so you don't actually have to play it. But okay, fine, jokes aside, the atmosphere is great. This is supposed to be an utterly, completely doomed apocalypse at the hands of the Seaborn, and the mode really makes you feel like it with its oppressive atmosphere and unforgiving mechanics. It's kind of like Fear and Hunger in a certain way, if you're familiar with that. Plus, it added a lot of mechanics for the first time, which IS4, 5, and 6 would then go on to implement much better. This mode is complete garbage, but we have to thank it for the IS modes we have today. Closing that very brief parenthesis on IS3, next up on the list is IS1. This is the only IS you cannot play today, and thusly it means the Utage Gunner skin is forever gone, unless they rerun it, and I'm just not aware. When IS1 came out, this shit was like a caveman discovering fire for the first time. It was very rough around the edges. It had some issues akin to IS3 where player agency was sometimes inhibited, but overall it was an amazing blueprint for things to come. It wasn't great in retrospect, it was incredibly rudimentary, but thinking about it doesn't make me pop a vein like IS3, so it gets to be above. Also, the entire mode is Ceobe tripping balls on hallucinogenic mushrooms, and that is funny. IS2 is an oddball. When it released, it didn't have the difficulty tiers we are all used to right now. The mode was built around a different kind of difficulty, that being very demanding stages. Some stages want very specific things out of you, be it healing, fast redeploy, silence, or disposable ranged units, tanks, vanguards, or more. The challenge was in the fact these stages could show up at any time and you could not avoid them, so you had to prepare in advance. You had to scramble with what you got to cover all your bases as best you could. As time went on, however, and we got more and more operators that could directly grab the enemy's soul and toss it into a paper shredder, IS2 lost most of that difficulty. Still, it was made in a very specific way, catered to that specific type of difficulty. You can imagine then, adding a half-baked difficulty system on top of a mode like this would not end very well. The more you climb the difficulty ladder, the more you can tell just how much this mode was not built for it. IS4 and 5, modes made from the ground up around the difficulty tiers, adopt a different kind of stage design, one where every stage can be solved in a varied amount of ways. The challenge becomes dealing with 18 stacked debuffs rather than stage mechanics, except for the bosses. IS2 then has both. It now has very demanding stages and stacking debuffs. It doesn't help these debuffs seem very arbitrary. There is no clear direction here. Difficulty 3, 4, 7, 13 and 15 revolve around RNG mechanics. Difficulty 1, 2, 6, 8 and 11 also have some aspect of RNG to them. I won't lie to you, it kind of falls into the same trap IS3 does. Some cursed relics are far more punishing than others, and it just means you will be restarting your run. So, if IS2 has a haphazard difficulty system slapped onto it, and RNG mechanics, why is it above IS3? The reasoning is actually very simple. IS2 actually succeeds at what IS3 was attempting with all the bullshit RNG. There is a true feeling of scrapping by despite the odds, of making do with what you get. Yes, IS2 can often be very cruel with its RNG, but unlike IS3, you can almost always look back on your run and see something you could have done better. Because the stages are demanding, because the relics are RNG but not too punishing, IS2 manages to create a sense of improvisation and ingenuity that IS3 lacks. You are actually engaging with the mode. There is steps you can take to improve. When you fail, you can often point at why you failed and how you can correct it. IS2's RNG is an obstacle to overcome, chosen at random. IS3's RNG is randomness for the sake of randomness that isn't made to be worked around, but rather to be coped with. IS2 stages are also far more engaging due to what they ask of you. Just pointing the operators at the enemies will often not work. You need a strategy, you need to be prepared, and you have the tools to be prepared. Given, in IS2 especially, you need quite a developed account to find success at high difficulty. You will need your Exia Alters, your Tragodias, Lemwens, Archetos, and so on. This puts IS2 in kind of a weird position. The lower difficulties are perfect for new players to go in and get accustomed with the mode, but the higher difficulties are kind of locked behind having the meta. Or at least having Lemon to bypass Phantom's bullshit dodge. Despite the mode being set up to fail on paper, I found myself enjoying my time in IS2. You actually interact with the mode, you have to make choices, and when you fail, you can look back and see why. I feel like I have to justify IS4's placement more than all the others. I suspect that the casual audience watching this video saw IS4 in second place and already told me to go fuck myself at least twice. IS4 is the first IS of the modern IS modes, quote-unquote. It is, I think, the hardest IS mode we have in the global server right now, and the only one where I still can't clear the max mode consistently. It was the first to introduce map manipulation. No longer are you at the whims of whatever the fuck lowlight decides to feed you that run. Rather, you can manipulate the stages and nodes. In IS4, this is done through fold dartals. One of them has an effect, while the other designates which nodes are affected. This ranges from buffs to your operators to straight up altering what the node is. It is an amazing system, it is pure player agency. It adds another layer of choice and strategy. What nodes do you change? Do you save the buffs for the final boss, or do you need them sooner? Do you change the node now, or do you save it in case a certain stage shows up? Vertical travel was also expanded upon. Rather than stupid-ass keys and dice, you have anti-interference index. You can spend these to travel vertically, enter bosky passages, which are extra mini floors, or you can hoard them to have more map knowledge. In IS4, the less anti-interference index you have, the more the map is obscured, ranging from completely obscured at E0 to being able to see the nodes in front of you, to having sneak peeks of the rewards at 6 and above. This may sound annoying on paper, but I actually really like this system. It makes you interact with the game, it gives you a choice to make. Either you consume your anti-interference index for the sake of more rewards and relics at the cost of less map knowledge, or you keep your anti-interference index for the sake of map knowledge at the cost of less rewards. Most of the time, admittedly, the best move is to spend most of your resources and deal with the minimized map knowledge, building your squad in such a way where you are prepared to improvise. But you have the choice to keep it. There are situations where keeping it is better, and there is merit in simply having that choice for those who would want to make it. However, there is a reason IS4 is not first. I won't mince words, this mode is fucking bullshit. Man-made Carnival exists, and I have no idea how you are even supposed to beat this stage. And I mean that genuinely. At higher difficulties, the final boss has a chance to pull the old dick twister on you and randomly transform into an emergency version, same for the floor 3 boss. The enemies in IS4 are made specifically to troll new players with movement speed mechanics, and it's hard as bricks. The squads are super underwhelming as well, like IS3. Scientific thinking feels misguided, the late game advantages not making up for the early game disadvantages. Advantages which in the end up being redundant, because you get plenty of anti-interference index normally too. First class focuses on 5 stars, and we all know how good 5 stars are in this game. Class squads are the same as IS3. We are gonna get to eternal hunting later, don't worry. Life prioritizing makes you waste said life by incentivizing you to reroll over and over for good fold dartals, just how the class squads do. And others are just kinda lame. In higher difficulties, you will be very much relying on RNG. You are hoping to not get main-made Carnival, and if you do, you are hoping to have randomly gotten a node-altering Foldartal along the way. You are also hoping the final boss stage won't just change into the hard mode and school fuck you. IS4 is a series of knowledge checks in a trench coat disguising as a game mode. IS4, while it does have a focus on mechanical skill like all the other IS modes, also focuses quite a lot on encyclopedic skill. You have to know how to beat the stages, what certain encounters do, what to pick and when, and more. This is yet another barrier to alienate casuals. In practice, it will mean you will lose a lot of runs because you just didn't know better and got your ass sent right back to the start. On the one hand, wow, does it suck to fail a run just because you forgot that one encounter sends you straight to super hell. On the other hand, wow, is it satisfying to finally become a living IS4 encyclopedia and master the mode. On the sinister third hand, however, why does this mode have a snowball lose more system? Upon losing life points, you will also increase collapse value, which will give you several pseudo-permanent debuffs. These pseudo-permanent debuffs will then lead you to be more likely to lose again, which will give you more debuffs, which makes you more likely to lose, which gives you more debuffs. This is an entirely unnecessary and overly punishing system. Why is there an added punishment for losing life points? The punishment for losing life points is losing life points. And here is where we talk about the Eternal Hunting Squad. On paper, this is the squad you pick to mitigate the lose more collapse level mechanic. When you achieve a perfect, it lowers collapse value. However, let me walk you through this. The only way to get guaranteed unavoidable collapse value is by entering the next floor. At max difficulty, you get 16 throughout the whole run, which equates to 4 collapse levels, which is honestly not all that much. Some debuff combinations can really fuck you over, but it's nothing you can't deal with. This means that, if you play well and get perfect clears anyway, Eternal Hunting doesn't do enough to justify being a squad. Really, this effect feels like it should be on a relic. And if you do find yourself leaking, Eternal Hunting still doesn't help, because the devs thought this meager effect should have a drawback, meaning leaking gives you even more collapse than usual. Thus, if you are the type of player that would want to use Eternal Hunting because you leak a lot, this squad actually harms you more than it helps. It will speed up the lose more mechanic, which is gonna make you lose more. IS4 is above IS3 and 2 because you interact with it a lot more. Every loss is your fault to some extent. The anti-interference index, the Foldartals, all require direct player input and direct choice. Unlike keys, you get anti-interference index rather often too. Every step of the way, there is some decision to make, and the stages being so demanding makes them engaging. IS4 is the first to introduce proper, actual, baked-in systems to allow you to have more agency in the mode. Still, it is barred from first place because it is just so fucking unfriendly to most of the player base. In fact, for casuals, I feel like IS3 would be better. IS4 feels like it is made from the ground up to be truly an endgame mode, and demand shit from you. It is shockingly hostile to casuals. Hey, hi, quick intermission. I want to place IS3 from difficulty 16 to 18 here. Technically, I couldn't, because it's not a separate mode, but I really can't stress enough how much the foster genotype improves the mode. So, here, IS3 difficulty 16 to 18 is technically the true second place, and not IS4. As I explain in the IS3 segment, this one single addition makes the mode genuinely enjoyable. Suddenly, the bullshit RNG between floors gains a purpose. It is not a slot machine that can either do nothing or end your run at will. Rather, it becomes another layer to the gameplay. Like IS2, it manages to give you that feeling of overcoming the odds through strategy. You have to make several choices when an operator gets a rejection, who to sacrifice, if you should pick up operators specifically to sacrifice, if it is even worth it, if you can afford to use 2 squad slots on just this, and so on. It gives the debuffs themselves more layers too. Concentration disorder is fucking awesome now. You can spread it over to a Myrtle, or some other operator you want to have an auto skill for comfort. Metastatic aberration also becomes kinda good to get. It just means you can deploy the affected operator much easier to get them buffed sooner. It makes the boring ass stages more engaging as well, because now you gotta do a little minigame with the foster genotype. It allows you to do more varied strategies, because thanks to the buff, now casters are viable again, and ground units don't get fucked through the eye socket on deployment anymore. It also flips the rejection roll on its head. Now you really want this to land on your carry. It achieves what that fuck-ass enlightenment system was trying to do. A system I didn't even get around to mentioning. Basically, the floor rolls are supposed to have a positive outcome. However, this is implemented so fucking poorly that I shit you not, I am certain there is several players who played IS3 but didn't even know these are in the game. For one, you need to be at max HP to get them, even if you roll high for some reason. For 2, you can only get these at max light, meaning they entirely disappear from the mode at difficulty 6 onwards. Raising your light level is unreliable, and plenty of things in IS3 actually incentivize you to lower your light or force it to stay lower. This means that the counterpart to rejections effectively disappears from the mode early on, and even before that, they are difficult to access. This made the floor rolls into the painful RNG nightmare you are all familiar with. Fosterer genotype, however, re-implements the enlightenments in a way. Now, rejections are tools, and some specific ones are really good tools. You are gonna come seeing concentration disorder, and metastatic aberration is great. Homopoietic inhibition and neurodegeneration are still bad, and that's a good thing. It makes concentration disorder and metastatic aberration shine more in comparison. There would be no excitement if the roll had no fail state, but even then, the fail state is something you can smartly work around. It's crazy how one little change can improve the mode so much, all the way from dead last, the worst mode in the game, to second place IS. Again though, I just wish this was part of the mode and not locked behind difficulty 16. Realistically, no one is gonna put themselves through that. I didn't put myself through that until I had to make this video, and I never would have otherwise. I was still on difficulty 10 before locking in and grinding the tiers for this video, and that's a fucking shame. Also, yeah, it fixes the main glaring issue with IS3, but others persist. There is still too much RNG that doesn't add anything to the mode. There's still boring-ass stages where nothing happens. Vertical travel is still a little too rare to access, and the hope economy is still too punishing unless you use the people-oriented squad. IS5 is absolute cinema, and I don't want to hear it. If you've been gathering all the clues throughout this overly long video like Scooby-Doo, IS5 being first is not a surprise. I keep sucking off the concept of player agency and being able to shape the mode with your actions, and IS5 is the embodiment of that. You can truly do whatever the fuck you want in this mode. You have control over the nodes. Hey, I realized I didn't explain how you have control over the nodes. The overarching gimmick of IS5 as a mode is node refreshing. You can spend plans obtained in many ways to reroll every single node you come across. Normally this is random, but there is free relics that increase the chances to reroll into encounter, emergency combat, or wish fulfilled, while also guaranteeing relics. There is also a squad that guarantees the node to reroll into a shop on your first reroll of each floor, and a squad that makes the first reroll on each node entirely free. This is the crux of the entire mode, and why, as I will explain shortly, it ended up being so unbalanced. Because how do you balance having endless out-of-jail free cards? You can avoid every stage you don't like, you can do everything you want, shape the map like you're in creative mode. Access to vertical travel is consistent and you can plan around it. You see the entire map at all times. You can guarantee certain relics and more. Every part of this mode is manipulable to your liking in some way, like choosing to stay fractured to get your HP to 1 so you can guarantee king relics with Lamp. Arknights is at its best when it acts like a sandbox, as I explain in this video. Sure, on paper you can go into any IS mode and win with a wide variety of strategies, even IS3 and 4 if you're good enough of a player. However, that speaks more to a player skill. If you can do that in IS3 and 4, you're a good player. IS5 is the first IS mode that feels made to allow the player to experiment and get wild and wacky with it on purpose. So for IS5, it is a merit of the mode. IS5 has so many ways to guarantee becoming God on Earth. Every run you have at least 3 different ways to become outrageously OP if you know what you're doing. The design philosophy makes it so you can clear even the max mode with anyone, really, any strategy and any operator. It matters little who you use when you have all king relics, 2 billion attack speed, and a blessing from Jesus Christ of Nazareth himself. On one hand, this allows for immense player freedom. It takes all pressure off you. You are free to use stupid-ass operators like Windfleet or Kestrel and still see success with some effort. However, on the other hand, it does make every run pretty much the same. When you are God on Earth, when you can manipulate everything in this mode, if you know how to, every run will boil down to select the shop squad, encounter floor 1, pick lamp, get yourself to 1 HP on purpose, guarantee the king relics with lamp, grab a 6-star carry, guarantee their hand relic with lamp, farm ingots, rob cannot on floor 5 or floor 6, guarantee the coin operated toy and the golden chalice with lamp, and GG. You could argue IS5 has the opposite problem as IS3. There is too little RNG, you have too much control, you have the power to make every run the same. Lamp kind of fucked the mode sideways. When you stop treating IS5 as a silly sandbox and want to get shit actually done, you are funneled into using Lamp every time. It doesn't help then that, 1, sometimes Lamp can just decide to fuck you over and not reroll into a relic mode, which either derails your run entirely or just ends it there, and 2, the new stages added with Lamp to combat Lamp are some of the most cancerous shit ever, adding friction to the sandbox experience I just got done glazing, and funneling you into Lamp even more. With Lamp, IS5 became a Lamp-centric mode. The stages are made to be fought with Lamp. A lot of people say that straight up Lamp should have never been added. But despite all that I said right now, I don't really agree with that. Lamp in itself is not the issue, it is everything around Lamp. It is how Lamp is implemented in IS5. Other roguelike games like Risk of Rain 2 or Dead Cells have an option to remove the roguelike as well, and it works there, because for artifacts in Risk of Rain 2 you need quite a process to even unlock them, and they are entirely optional. And in Dead Cells, custom games are also optional, and more there as a solution to combat the weapon bloat you will face later on. The through line is they are optional systems. Meanwhile, IS5 made Lamp an integral part of the mode. Lamp is a bit of a double-edged sword for me. On one hand, I like IS5 because it is a very sandboxy experience, much like the main game, where you can get by with any wacky operator you want. It lets them shine even in the max mode, and this experience only exists thanks to Lamp. I have Lamp to thank if IS5 is my favorite IS. It single-handedly created what makes IS5 special if you decide to view it as a sandbox playground. It makes the mode replayable by virtue of all the stupid shit you can try out in it. On the other hand, it harms the roguelike experience. IS5 barely qualifies as one, and it is its fault if IS6 corrected in the opposite direction way too much. If you're here for the roguelike, the mode is actually quite unreplayable. There is one strategy that the mode is made around, and if you want results, you're gonna have to do that strategy. In the end though, because when I play Arknights I prioritize a sandbox experience, IS5 still ends up being first place, which is kinda funny that the mode that is the least like a proper roguelike is my favorite out of the roguelike modes. And that's all. Maxed out your Gummy. IS6 video eventually. Bye. Hey, hi, welcome to the outro. Wow, this fucking video is way too long, and like half of it is just IS3. Anyway, thank you for watching, and a special thank you to Ilio, Living Shad, Kami I Love Wishadel, Crayon Box, F. Ramn, The Lord of All Magic, URL Killer, Daivius, Kino, Bomb Ninja, Good Old Leon, Apollo T, QX102, Mr. Lair, Nathaniel Raptor, 1K, Never Far Off, Zephyrinix, Noobpo, Life in a Box, Lizard King, Nemotic, Nerd Rage, Andre Mula, San Kenshi, DTK Sky Kill, Kevin McGuire, Chroma Lachan, 5QTZK, Porato Chipu, Genius K Shipper, Selfer 7, Maxio Says, Camon Hiren, Larmendra, Prancing Peppers, Radio Nuke Unio, Yuvune, King of Harems, That Guy with Two Names, Kamui, and Bozidar, sorry. Well, that's about it, really. You can go watch another video now. My videos, of course, stay within this channel.